If you're anything like me, you probably have a pretty stacked to-do list. Between my work life and my personal life, I have a lot going on, and I often wonder how I got myself into such a mess of so many commitments. I am a support specialist for the budgeting app YNAB, and I also manage all of the internal and external documentation for what's probably the most complicated and contentious part of our app, which is credit cards. My job responsibilities look much different than someone who's a senior manager or in ops or engineering, or even another entry level support specialist. But I'm certain that we all share that collective stress of a full plate. You may also feel like you're making baby steps towards some of your goals, but you're not able to make substantial progress on what matters most to you. Saying no can help you flip the switch. You can create space for yourself, breathing room to focus your efforts more on the things that will make the biggest difference in your career and in your life. You'll be your best self and do your best work when you have clear priorities and boundaries for the work you take on. If your end goal is to have a workload that reflects your priorities, you need to first decide what your priorities are. And by priorities, really, I mean priority. Priority used to just mean one. When the word priority was first introduced in the English language back in the 1400s, it used to talk about just the most important thing, the one thing that needed our focus. In the 1900s, priority became priorities, and we lost the meaning of having just one priority. We started to divide our attention to multiple tasks, thinking we could give a full brain to all of them. In an article by James Clear called The Myth of Multitasking, he talks about the time we waste by trying to do multiple things at once. The average person checks their email about every 5 minutes and takes a full minute to return their focus to what they were working on before. We waste 1 minute out of every 6 just from email alone. When you think about how many different tasks we switch between and how often we switch between them throughout our workday, that adds up to an amount of time wasted that's not insignificant. I love this quote from Clear's article. Doing more things does not drive faster or better results. Doing better things drives better results. When we focus our energy into one task at a time, our work will come out better and faster than if we were switching between tasks. This doesn't mean that we can only take on one project at a time, though. Many of our jobs require that we work on several different projects throughout the day, or maybe your job description includes a few different areas of expertise. I'm not saying that you have to drop everything but one task or project at a time. You will produce better work, however, if you focus on one project at a time. When our energy is pulled in 15 different directions, we make a fraction of the progress than if we were to focus all of our energy in just one direction. It is a conscious choice to focus our energy. Our energy and attention will get pulled in a million different directions if we let it. In his best-selling book, Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, Greg McKeown says, when we don't purposefully and deliberately choose where to focus our energies and time, other people, our bosses, our colleagues, our clients, and even our families will choose for us. And before long, we'll have lost sight of everything that is meaningful and important. We can either make our choices deliberately or allow other people's agendas to control our lives. It can be hard to know what to focus on when so many things are begging for our attention. How do we decide what to put our energy into? The answer to this lies in finding your one big priority. When I was a kid and learning to ride a bike, I have this very vivid memory of jumping on my bike, riding a few feet, and toppling over. I couldn't keep my balance. I kept falling over again and again and again. And my dad gave me some advice. He said, instead of looking at the ground in front of you and trying to avoid the rocks and cracks in the road, focus on where you want to go instead. So I jumped back on my bike, I took off up the street, and I was able to ride freely. As I focused on my destination, I was able to keep my balance. I didn't wobble or crash. I knew exactly where I was headed, and it was smooth riding from there. Focusing all of our energy in one direction is a lot easier when we know which direction we want to go. Defining your one priority will give you that clarity and help you make all the smaller decisions you face. This could look like creating a 5-year plan, deciding on your desired career path, writing a personal mission statement, or creating some sort of specific goal for your current role in the mid to long term. To help you make the deliberate choices of where you'll focus your time and energy day to day, month to month, and year to year, ask yourself this question. Is this going to help me achieve my one priority? Putting in the work ahead of time to help you with your decision making will make it that much easier for you to feel confident in saying yes or in saying no. In that same article, James Clear says the power of choosing one priority is that it naturally guides your behavior by forcing you to organize your life around that responsibility. Having your one priority defined will guide you to your most important work and help you make your decisions much easier so you can keep your focus on that one priority. In the workplace, saying yes has become the default. We are rewarded for saying yes and punished for saying no. If someone approaches you and asks you to do something, asks you to take on a new project or help them with a certain task, you are instantly rewarded for saying yes. You're instantly rewarded with this praise and gratitude. But if you say no, you're instantly met with disappointment and pushback. Instead of jumping through the mental hoops to figure out if you can actually handle that task right now, given everything else you have going on your plate already that day, we just say yes automatically and say, I'll figure it out later, I'll make it work, I'll squeeze it in. You don't want to let your colleagues down or make your boss think that you can't handle the work you've been assigned. But in saying yes to everything, you're setting yourself up to do less quality work. And it's not just about having to rush through everything to get through all of your tasks and doing less quality work, but it's also about the subconscious stress that comes just with having a full plate. It's like leaving that email unread that you need to reply to, but it just stays unread for weeks and it keeps making you feel guilty for putting it off. Those well-meaning commitments and activities that you've agreed to will accumulate and they all get lost. McKeon relates this to your closet at home. If you make no conscious effort to maintain a tidy closet, it becomes cluttered and overrun with items you don't need, that you don't wear. When it gets to be too overwhelming, you may, in a fit of rage when you can't find the belt you need, purge everything from your closet and finally trim it down to a more manageable state. You make piles of clothing you'll donate, clothing you'll keep, and maybe you hold on to a few things that you should actually be getting rid of. But if you don't have a system to prevent this from happening again moving forward, it will. You may need to adopt a one in, one out policy, or maybe you create a set of criteria for any new items of clothing you purchase, like it needs to be worn in multiple outfits or across multiple seasons. Similarly, we need a system for which tasks and projects we choose to take on to keep our workload tidy and manageable. We need to flip the script on default yes, and instead make every task prove its worth before securing a spot in our to-do list. Putting each and every task and opportunity through a set of criteria will help you be more intentional about the trade-offs you're making every day. It will protect you from the I can do both or even I can do it all mindset. It really forces you to consider all of your options, your workload as a whole, and curate your workload according to your one priority. Your to-do list will be decided by design and not by default. As you make this shift in your life, you'll learn to distinguish the vital few from the trivial many. And there are many examples of this concept everywhere. Take Southwest Airlines, for example. Their priority was cheap flights, and they had to make countless trade-offs to make it a possibility for their customers while staying profitable. They decided to forego serving meals on flights. Instead of assigning seats, passengers choose them as they board the plane. Instead of flying to every destination, they just chose a select few destinations where they would fly. And they don't sell business or first class tickets. They only sell coach. Southwest knew what their priority was and what it wasn't. They had a goal to be an affordable option for flights, and they made intentional trade-offs to get there. They didn't try to do it all. When you're proactive in choosing your trade-offs, you hold the power to align your workload with your priorities. Creating criteria makes every single decision that much easier. You do the work up front, deciding what's important to you and what you want to consider with every opportunity that's presented to you. I have a friend who looks up the menu ahead of time and decides what she wants before she goes to a new restaurant. It saves her time. She makes that decision beforehand, and when the server asks her what she wants, she doesn't panic and say chicken tenders. When you've already decided on the things you want to consider, you make that decision much faster, much easier, and you save yourself from just saying yes by default. The Eisenhower matrix is a great example of a set of criteria you can create to help guide your decisions. Dwight D. Eisenhower is regarded as one of the most productive people, not just presidents, out there. And he was sustainably productive for decades. And it's because he had this clear-cut criteria for which tasks he would take on himself, which tasks he would delegate to others, and which tasks he would say no to altogether. The matrix is broken down into 4 quadrants. Along the top, you have urgent and non-urgent, and along the side, you have important and not important. Anything that's both important and urgent is a yes. Those are things that will contribute significantly to your one priority, and they require immediate action. Things that are urgent but not important fall into the delegate area. See if there's someone else that would be better suited for this task. Maybe it falls better under their scope of responsibilities, or they'll just call in a favor and do it for you. Anything that's important but not urgent should get scheduled. It needs to be done, but maybe not today. And anything that is neither urgent nor important gets tossed. It's a no, and you can, without guilt, strike it from your to-do list. It's also important to note that your perspective of where a certain task falls on this matrix may differ from the person who is assigning it to you, or the person who's asking for your help. And in this case, communication is key. Share each of your perspectives, and you can come to an agreement on what needs to happen with the specific task. You can create your own criteria if there are other things that are more important to you to consider in your decision-making process. Start with something easy, like, is this within my scope of responsibilities? And given everything else that's on my plate right now, can I actually complete this task before the required time frame is up? These are the absolute bare minimum requirements that we would have for saying yes to any given task. And then dig in a little deeper. Ask yourself some more focused questions to see if this task is really worth pursuing. You can consider things like, will this help me achieve my one priority? What other task would I be willing to give up to make time for this one? And is this project or task something I'm passionate about? You get to decide what's important to you and what will make the cut. Greg McKeon recommends creating 3 simple criteria and 3 extreme criteria. Each opportunity that's presented to you should go through your criteria. If it doesn't pass any one of your 3 easy criteria, then it should probably be a no. And if it doesn't also pass at least 2 of your 3 criteria, your 3 extreme criteria, it should also be a no. We want our work to be meaningful to us. We want to make a difference and feel like what we're doing is worth our time and that we're benefiting those around us. It may feel harsh to say no to so many tasks if they aren't meeting your criteria, but that's the whole point of having criteria. It forces you to be more intentional about what work you take on. Greg McKeon says, making our criteria both selective and explicit affords us a systematic tool for discerning what is essential and filtering out the things that are not. Now, this criteria doesn't only apply to new opportunities. It can also help us pare down our current workload to a more manageable state and help us align our current work with our priorities as well. Each year, my husband and I do what we call a budget burn down. We like to reserve a room with a whiteboard at the library, take our favorite snacks, and we rebuild our budget from scratch. As we think of every expense we may encounter, we take a moment to scrutinize it and evaluate if we really need it. Rent, can we move into a smaller apartment that costs less? Gas, can we maybe sell our car and save the money we'd be spending on gas and repairs? Subscriptions, can we cancel Netflix and see if we miss it in a few months? Every single expense from our previous budget gets heavily scrutinized. And if we determine it's really essential and will help us achieve our financial goals and it's something that makes us happy, it goes into the new budget. We have a finite amount of money, and it's important that our money works for us and helps us achieve our financial goals. This activity helps us recenter and make sure our spending is really aligned with our priorities. We get the chance to talk about our financial goals and find a way to make them happen through our spending plan. Similarly, we have a finite amount of energy and time. If we're intentional and critical of how we spend that energy and time, we will progress faster toward our personal and professional goals. I recommend taking the time to do a similar activity with your workload. Evaluate every single task and project you have on your plate and put it through the criteria you established for taking on new tasks. With every single task, ask yourself, if I didn't already have this on my plate, would I agree to do it again? If the answer is no, mark it off. The fastest way to complete a task is to remove it from your list altogether. This quarter, my one big priority was to evaluate and purge my backlog of knowledge requests. I had close to 50 open requests for updates or changes to our documentation that fell under my area of expertise. Can you guess how many of those I actually completed? I think it was like 20 or 25. Now, this isn't to say that I just decided to skip out on all of that work that was assigned to me. I went through every single request individually and evaluated each one to determine its productivity. I delegated many of those tasks to other team members who had a similar area of expertise and had more time on their plates. I completed the ones that were urgent and important, the ones that I needed to do, and the rest of them were marked off my list. So, how do we actually go about turning down opportunities and tasks that are presented to us? Saying no is a skill, and it takes time to build it up. It will likely feel awkward or uncomfortable to begin with, but just like exercising any muscle, it will grow stronger with use. You'll become more confident in your ability to say no. This quote from Essentialism speaks to that end. The point is to say no to the non-essentials so we can say yes to the things that really matter. It is to say no to everything but what is truly vital. I've gathered some of my favorite methods and tips for declining opportunities in a way that's empowering to you and respectful to your peers. Many of these come from the book Essentialism, various articles from Harvard Business Review, the book How to Say No and Live to Tell About It by Mary Byers, and various sources from James Clear. First, empower yourself to say no. As you practice saying no more often, you'll gain that confidence and feel empowered to take control over your workload and your energy. To help yourself build up that confidence, here are some more tips that may help. First, separate the decision from the relationship. Saying no to someone does not mean you don't value the relationship that you have with them or that you don't want to help this person. It often means you value that relationship enough to protect it from the strain caused by broken commitments. The people around you will see you as a person of your word because you don't overcommit. Now, this next one may be a little bit more applicable in your personal life, but embrace the FOMO. I know how it feels to be a reliable friend or family member, saying yes to every request, always answering the phone, going to every single event. And I also know how exhausting it can be. Embrace that it's okay for you to miss out on some stuff in your life, even some really fun or exciting things, to make room for your own priorities. And be straightforward. A clear no is more graceful than a vague or a non-committal yes. Instead of stringing someone along saying, I think I can make it work, or I might be able to get it done, just be straight with them. You can try saying something like, I can't make it work this time, and you deserve someone who can commit to this. Now, let's talk about your workload as a whole. Maintaining a clear and present awareness of your workload will help you prioritize and make those decisions of what to take on and what to pass on. Review your to-do list regularly. Staying cognizant of what's currently on your plate will help you keep your current commitments at the forefront of your mind and make those yes and no decisions much faster. And seek advice from others. If you're approached with a new project or you're working on paring down your current workload, ask your manager what you should prioritize. You can say something like, I'd love to help with this, but I don't know if I'll have time to complete both X and Y. Which one should I focus on first? Now, hopefully, when you're presented with a new opportunity, you'll have already created your criteria and you'll know which requirements you have for saying yes to someone. But you may need some time in the moment to run through your criteria and make sure this opportunity is worth your time. Pause. You don't need to reply right away. You can take a few moments to breathe and consider the opportunity. Run it through your criteria in your head. Embrace the awkward silence for just a moment while you consider. And if you need to, let them know you'll get back to them. You may need some more time to consider your options and evaluate what you already have on your plate to see if you'll be able to complete this task. You can say, can I check what else I have on my plate right now and get back to you? Ask them when they need a firm commitment and let them know before then. Offer an alternative. If you can complete part of this task, or if you can recommend somebody else who may be better suited for the task, offering an alternative can soften the blow of a no. You can say, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now, but I think so and so might. As you practice these tactics and find what works best for you, you'll build up that no muscle and it will get easier. You'll get better with practice and you'll find the work that's most important to you, the work that will help you make the biggest impact. In our fast-paced world where multitasking and constant busyness have become the norm, it's crucial to reclaim our focus and take control over our lives. We've talked about finding our one priority and choosing to focus on the long game. establishing specific criteria to help us make our decisions faster and easier. And we've discussed ways we can strengthen our no with respect. Making the shift toward intentional decision making will not only enhance your productivity, but also enable you to distinguish between the essential and the trivial. Saying no with conviction and purpose empowers us to live a more purposeful and fulfilling life where every single commitment serves a meaningful role in our progress toward our goals. Saying no really means saying yes to what truly matters.